Hey, it's Dave Wyman from Bob, Dave, and More, and time for another installation of Football 101. Seahawks beat the Cleveland Browns on the road. Browns now 0 for 3 at home. Beat them 32-28. Wanted to look at a couple of pictures because, a couple of plays because the defense started off pretty rough, and we'll get to it later. But they had a little meeting on the sidelines after a few of these plays. But we're going to look at a couple of these plays. This one, first of all, was a run play for about 51 yards. It was in the first quarter, 35 seconds left on 2nd and 1. And, the Seahawks we always talk about gap integrity. It's, staying in your lane, staying in your gap. And later on when Bobby talks to the entire defense, I'm sure he's just talking about that. I mean, it's like, do your job, okay? So, but I wrote up, don't point the finger here because sometimes, and Pete referenced this play, he said, we got out of our gaps. So you're never going to throw a player under the bus, ever, as a coach. And I don't like doing it myself because, you never know there are rules and sometimes different checks and things like that. So to make that assumption on the field, I think it's a bad look. So, but first, let's look at this. They got 8 in the box here, 2 tight end set here. They're in pistol right here, where the quarterback's about 2 or 3 yards behind, and he's got a running back behind this play. And so what you have here is, if you look at it from outside in, you've got 8 gaps here, okay? 1 outside here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And they got 8 guys to cover those 8 gaps. So, and what happened was somebody didn't cover their gap. So, and initially I thought it was one player, and then later on I thought it was another one. But, really it might come down to, at the end here, looking at 2 players, but sometimes there's a safety that's supposed to fill or something. So you just never know. And that's why I write, don't point the finger. But what happens is here, it looks like Clowney is lined up here, and he should have that gap. Here, here, here. This is a fold block that they did, and they kind of switched gaps a little bit, but the guard blocked down on Poona Ford, and the center came around to get Bobby, but basically stayed in their same gaps, here, here, here. And so everybody has a gap, right? And Lano Hill is outside. Well, what happened was a reach block, and that's when you go across your face and get in front of a guy. So with Clowney's alignment here, the tight end really shouldn't be able to make that block, but he got over in front of Jadeveon Clowney. And then what he did is a butt block. So he got in front of him and then just kind of walled him off, sort of, just putting his rear end towards him. That way, he didn't get a holding penalty or anything like that. And it created a huge gap right here. But this play starts this way, and Nick Chubb, who I think is one of the best cutback runners in the league, he finds his way all the way back here. And one of the reasons why he ran all the way back across is that Ziggy Ansah got great penetration. I mean, he got right through here and disrupted the play and forced Chubb to cut it back. But he cuts it back here, and by the time he gets here, Lano Hill was, he was up sort of right there, and this block kind of happened. He didn't really see. And you could tell he was sitting like he was going to get outside. He thought he had outside leverage or force. He thought this was his gap. And so it turned out that the block happened right here. So, the reason why I bring all this up is just because, well, maybe he was supposed to fold over. It was probably one of those 2 guys, but you never know. And I think that Lano Hill took a lot of blame. People were talking about Clowney when, in fact, you don't really know whose gap is who on this one. So you could look at it a couple of different ways, and it's funny, when I look at this from the sidelines, it looks like it's Lano, and from the end zone, it looks like it was Clowney, but you really can't tell because, I've been in these meetings where, there's lots of rules, and that's what we're going to talk about. This is they were back-to-back plays. That one was 51 yards. This was a 31-yard touchdown. And it was the first play of the second quarter. And like I said, this led to Bobby Wagner, who not a very boisterous guy. He doesn't yell and scream a lot. He let the defense have it. And we watched it from the booth for quite a while. After that, they only scored 8 points, and they had scored 20 on, I think it was their first 3 drives. So, but what happened here was, and this is why I say again, don't point the finger. This looked like cover 3 to me. And what cover 3 is, just to review, is that's how you cover the deep half of the field. So you had Thompson, and on that side, you had Trey Flowers, and then of course Shaquille on this, and then you got 4 underneath droppers. So 4 underneath and 3 deep. And people have kind of complained about this defense because, you know, you get hit underneath, but you only got 4 droppers. And really, it's meant to keep everything in front of you because you've got all these 3 guys dropping deep. But the reason why I'm not guessing on the coverage here is because for some reason at the snap of the ball, Trey Flowers came running all the way over here. And then I think Tedrick tried to compensate for him. So those guys, I think there was some confusion there. But I think one of the things that people blamed Michael Kendricks on was this touchdown because the tight end came all the way across. And these guys did what they're supposed to do. They stay in their zone. You don't chase a guy in zone coverage. He came all the way across. And mostly, you know, you got to get some pressure on the quarterback because this is a long developing play. And then he went vertical upfield. Well, what happened to in between where Michael Kendricks was dropping about 12 yards deep, because that's how deep the underneath guys drop, and where Shaquille would pick him up, Shaquille got run off by a route, and it was really well designed. I thought Cleveland, this was a crossing route, which gives this defense troubles we've seen. And then he was able to turn it up and just get over the fingertips of Michael Kendrick and kind of found a dead zone because Shaquille had ran off into the end zone. So there was nobody there. I think a lot of people thought that it was Michael Kendrick's fault, but you know, I don't think so because he's only dropping about 12 yards deep. But I wrote down rules here because maybe it was. You never know. Like I said, maybe if somebody runs through a zone late, you should pick them up man-to-man. I don't know. But this was Ricky Seals-Jones, who's a tight end, and I know Kendrick can cover him. But, you know, sometimes there are rules like that. So that's why I say, you know, just don't point the finger. You know, and I know a lot of fans, they want to blame somebody for what happens, but sometimes you don't know because I've been in those meetings where there's some weird rule like this or, you know, there's confusion, whatever. So the main point, though, is that the Seahawks defense got together, came together, started doing their jobs. They went and got 4 turnovers, a blocked punt, and they just hung in there. And this, I've said this all year, this is a scrappy team. They're able to overcome adversity and end up winning in the end, and that's why they're 5-1.